In this video, I want to tell you more about the mechanical review of a project finance model. Okay, so I made three videos previously about the review of a project finance model, and I mainly gave you an overall overview of how I do a review of a project finance model. And I told you about the two-step method, step one being the body search, where I check the mechanics, model mechanics, design, and structure. And the soul search, which is when I go into the inputs and calculation and results and define a base case. Okay. So today I want to focus more on this mechanical check and give you some hints. Of course, every project is unique, so we cannot just generalize everything, but I'm going to give you some hints about the general things, the typical things that I check when I go through the model for the first time. And I want to make sure that the model is suitable for the project. And I can recommend my team and my client that they can use the project, the financial model going forward. Okay. The first question that I want to answer here is, okay, Hediye, you just started working on a project. Uh, it's your first encounter with that project. You don't know anything about it. So somebody send you the financial model and they say, can you please review the model for me and tell me whether this model is suitable going forward or whether we need to invest on a new model. Can I answer this question without having access to any of the project document, without knowing anything about the project? That's the question, okay? And it happens a lot to people when they work in a company or they work as a consultant for a client, that they are asked to review a financial model without really prior knowledge on the project itself. And for me, that's a no. You cannot review a model, even if it's just a pure mechanical, structural design. If it is only that, you still cannot do without having some general knowledge about the project. Okay. So when I am at this stage in the first review, I always tell my client ahead of time that if I want to do things correctly, I want to, make sure that I inform them. If you want me to do my job correctly, you need to trust me. I can sign an NDA or whatever you need, but I need to have access to all the project documents. And all the project documents, I need them for the second review, second step when I go into the detail. But for the first one, if you only want me to check, the model mechanics, I still need some information. I still need to know, first of all, what this project is all about, what is the technology. The second most important question is, at what stage are you in this project? Are you in the early development? Are you in the middle of development? Have you signed the contracts with your lenders? Because that's a whole different story. If you have already signed your loan agreement, you already have your debt sized. Most probably you have already your debt sculpted. So if I review a model which has debt sculpting in it, debt sizing in it, tariff setting in it, refinancing in it, all that, and all this has already been resolved and contracted in a contract and fixed, so it's useless. It's complexity which is not justified, right? So my aim is to make sure the model is flexible, but the flexibility is so important. I mean, because I always say there is a trade-off between flexibility and simplicity, okay? So for me, simplicity is more important than flexibility, to be honest with you. So I try, of course, flexibility is also important, but I put more weight on simplicity, okay? Because first of all, it makes the model, if you have more flexibility, you have a model which is mainly slow to run and more difficult to audit and review and more prone to errors, okay? So if I can remove some of the flexibilities, it's very good news for me, if I can say that, okay, I have already maybe sized my debt. Now debt is fixed. So if I can remove that debt sizing mechanism from the model, it's just such a blessing, it's just going to make the model much more faster, right? So I need to know about what happened in the project so far. What have you signed? Did you sign the EPC? Did you sign your loan agreement? Did you sign your shareholder agreement? How are you with your taxes? Do you know what tax system the project is applicable? If not, these are all the things that needs to come out of the model. So even if you're at the early stage of the model review, you still need to have some information about the project. Okay, so that's the message that I want to pass on to you right now. If you are a financial modeler and you are working for a company, don't be ashamed and scared to ask to be involved in the process, to have access to the project document, to be engaged in the calls, with all the parties, because it's not for you that you want to make yourself bigger or more important. It's just going to benefit the project, right? So that's the thing that you need to make everybody understand. If you're a developer as well, that's also something that you need to understand. If you're hiring a consultant that is working for you, you want to make sure that the consultant has the information needed in order to do the right review. Okay? So that was a side note on this topic. I get a bit emotional about it. But yeah. So the other point that I wanted to mention here is about the things that I check at this stage. Okay. I explained a little bit about flexibility, but so there is a list of things that I check, and I have a checklist as well that I'm going to put the link. You can go and check it out. There are things that I typically check uh, when it comes to the design and structure of a financial model. And I want to take you through an Excel sheet and show you what are the things that I check. So when I am building a financial model, I always include this sheet that I call guide sheet. And when I am reviewing someone else's financial model, I also try to construct these sections and make sure that, all these sections are satisfied in the model that I'm reviewing. The first thing I want to see in the model is that the model is following a certain color code. Okay, I don't care about if they use pink, they use blue, whatever color they want to use, I don't care. I don't have a say about that. This is their own preference, right? They want to use, yellow for input, fine, it's okay with me. If they want to use blue, if they want to use purple, it's fine. As long as they use the specific color code and they use it consistently throughout the spreadsheet, throughout the financial model, I'm fine with it. I just want to make sure that this is the case, that when I open the model, there are certain cells that are formatted in a certain way so that I know that I can change these cells. They are hard-coded inputs and I can change them, and they're going to change some calculations. Or if there are like inputs from macros, most of the time we have copy and paste and all this sort of things, or like goal seek. So these are not hard coded, but they are rather an output of a macro. So I want them to also be color coded differently. So I want to make sure that, I understand, the project, I understand the financial model by, following the color code which are defined in the model. Okay. So that's the first thing that I check is the color coding. And of course, when I check this, I want to make sure that there are no hard-coded inputs within the calculations, and there are no hard-coded figures within formulas. Okay, so these are the things that I want to make sure, and I will check in each and every worksheet in the model that this is the case. There are no hard coding. Okay, that's the first thing. And I also want to just give you a side note, I use the generic macro also for the review and audit of a financial model. I have a separate video on that, how you can use the generic macro to format a sheet and to also detect the inputs included in the model. You can also use the F5 function, F5 or F5 to select the hard-coded inputs and find out if there are any hard coding within the calculation sheets. Okay, so the first thing is to understand the color code and make sure that the model has a clean color code and has no hard coding within the calculation sheets. Another thing is about the model functionality. Okay, so most of the time we have switches and like stuff in the model, buttons and all that. I want to make sure that all these buttons and switches in the model, whether they are in the dashboard, whether they are in the input, wherever they are, they work properly. And I am very kind of careful about the running time of the model. If I am dealing with a model and when I press, calculate, it takes like, 5 minutes for the model to run. Even 2 minutes for me is too much. If it is the case, I am a bit stressed, I'd say, okay, I mean, what if, because at this, if I want to add more complexity in the model, then most probably the running time will be even longer. So that's something is alarming to me, okay? So I want to make sure that the running time is good and also everything is working, when I run the buttons and everything is working properly. So the model functionality is something that, of course, is important and you need to make sure that it works fine. The other thing that I want to make sure is that the model contains sensitivity and scenario analysis, right? Although at this stage, as I said, when I'm doing the mechanical check, I don't care about the results and output, but I want to make sure that at least the model can accommodate different scenarios and different sensitivities, okay? If the model doesn't have sensitivities in it, it's not a big red flag that will tell me that because the model doesn't contain sensitivity, I cannot work with it. Sensitivity is a module that you can add on to your financial model. It's not a big deal, but not having a sensitivity is alarming, to be honest with you, because to me, the main purpose of a financial model is to run sensitivities. If not, you can present your result in a Word document and present your result. The main purpose of using Excel is to be able to dynamically change things, and sensitivity is one of them, okay? So of course you need to see sensitivity and check the model for, sensitivity and scenario analysis. The other thing that I want to make sure that is consistent in the model is to have a structure, um, especially for if you are using a modular model, meaning that it's like you have multiple sheets. You want to make sure that the calculation sheets, the column structure is consistent throughout the calculation sheets, meaning that you have one dedicated column for labels, you have one dedicated column for units. I have seen that a lot. It's better nowadays because the standards are becoming more common spread, but I still see sometimes that they don't put the labels specifically in a column. And then I say, okay, so how do I know whether this line that you are presenting to me is kilowatt hours? Is it US dollars? Is it Nairas? What is it? So having one column just dedicated for units is just something that, I always recommend and I always want to see. Okay. So unified column structure across all calculation sheet is something that I want to see. I don't want to see a debt schedule, which is done vertically, like your dates are on the columns and your debt schedule is like, I don't want to see that. If you have a horizontal model, it should be horizontal throughout across all the modules. You cannot have one sheet vertical, another one horizontal. It's just going to make things so difficult. I want to be able to link things, dynamically without even thinking like, You see what I mean? So that's something that I want to avoid. And I always, make sure that the model is like consistent, when it comes to the column structure. Then I want to also understand what is the main worksheet structure. What are the worksheet included and whether they are useful, I mean, it happens to me so many times that there are some worksheets that I do not see necessary, in the model. So I will ask them to maybe combine some of the sheets and make sure that, there is a specific purpose for each worksheet included in the model, and it's justified. Why did you separate your revenues? In a way, do you have many technical inputs and technical calculation, or can you combine them all within one sheet? So these are the things that you can discuss with your team, and some of them can be a design. Again, it can be a design uh, choice. Somebody likes to, I always say, for example, me, uh, when you look at my bag, I have bags within bags. I kind of separate, even if you look at my files, I have subfolders within subfolders. I like to organize things like that way. That's why my models are also very modular. Okay. So I like to label them and make sure that the person knows when they go to that sheet what they will expect from that sheet and what they can find in there. But some people, they like to put everything in one sheet and call it calculation. That's perfectly fine with me. I cannot question it. It's the way their mind is organized and this way their mind works. And that's how they like to organize their worksheet. It's perfectly fine. I cannot just I cannot, reject something because of a design choice, as long as it is justified and it doesn't bother anyone, it's just fine. Okay, so just keep that in mind because nowadays, especially young financial modelers, they go through a training and they are basically instructed that this is how things are done. I am not a religious person, so I like to, give freedom to people to design their spreadsheet the way they want to, as long as I can live in it. It's a house. It's exactly like a house. It has different rooms. Some rooms are smaller, some rooms are bigger. As long as I can live in it and cook in it and sleep in it, I'm fine. So it's the same with the financial model. As long as, I can use the model going forward and everything is clear, transparent, then I'm fine with it. Okay, so that's about the worksheet structure. Macros. I want to go when I'm reviewing someone else's model. First of all, if the macros are password protected, I'm not going to even bother reviewing the model. I'm going to send it back to them and say, I cannot review it. Please provide me with the password, and then I can do my review. Without that, I cannot. I cannot review any model because I don't know what it is doing. What if there is a macro that is changing inputs in the background and I am not aware of it? So I'm not accusing. I'm just saying that I need to understand all the macros that are behind the scenes. I need to go inside and read them, understand them, execute them, and make sure that they all work properly and they are all, have a purpose. And what is the purpose? So that's something that can be presented in a table. You can make a table with all the macros and understand what each macro does. Error checks. I want to make sure the model contains error checks, as many error checks as possible. I don't care. Some people, they say some of the error checks are useless. It's okay. As long as you have error checks. The typical ones are balance sheet balances, DS, minimum DSCRs are satisfied, and sources and uses matches, and all these things I need to have a check in the model so that I make sure that when I change things, at least these checks are satisfied. It's going to give me a level of satisfaction. But I will still do my checks, make sure the model is correct. But having error checks is something that is, of course, needed. So that's basically it when it comes to the mechanical checks in a model. Let me see if I missed anything. Yeah, so flexibility, transparency, structure, and durability are the things that you need to check. I'm going to put the reference to some additional materials that you can go and check them out. But that's it for me for now. In the next video, I will talk about the soul searching when it comes to financial model and give you some hints about that. And for now, thank you so much and hope to see you in my next video. Bye.